Hello and welcome to this Hybrid Manifesto. Glad to see you stopping by. In this Hybrid Manifesto, I will try to help you get better at hybrid teaching, which in this educational package includes, among other matters, making recordings of in-class lectures, making recorded lectures and video essays, better interactions with students on Zoom. What else is included in this Hybrid Manifesto? We have combinations of better teaching and videography, combinations of what could be called media strategies and pedagogy. In other words, this contains a hybrid and transdisciplinary knowledge for hybrid teaching. Unlearning mistakes that you and I and others may have made at the start of the pandemic and into the pandemic at universities around the world. I will try to break down, for example, a hybrid classroom and demonstrate why the thinking and the way it's set up is quite wrong. Another matter is understanding and learning from the various mistakes and false starts that you may have made and others at university and I may have made and others at universities around the world with what we did at the start and into the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a certain tendency for the habits which people developed during the COVID-19 pandemic for teaching to continue onwards afterwards, and these, should we call them, new old habits will have a tendency to die hard. They stick around even though there might be other alternatives that could be better. Additionally, better ways to arrange hybrid teaching rooms on campus, to combine ideas about having a broadcast studio, although it's not a broadcast studio, but thinking in those lines, and the classroom. This involves the positions of the cameras and the microphones, the positions of the instructor vis-a-vis the cameras and the students in the classroom. I talked about pedagogy before, and before we go any further, not to make this introductory and welcome film any longer, let me make a bold statement. Let me state clearly here in this introductory welcome and hello video for you that technology is not pedagogy. You could use so-called educational apps in a larger strategy for hybrid teaching, but just because you use a particular educational app, doesn't that make you automatically somebody that works with hybrid teaching? Who am I, and what sort of time frame are we talking about here? My name is Joe Strahl, and I teach in environmental studies at Malmö University, Sweden. And this recording is being made during August of 2025. Recordings that you may see in this Hybrid Manifesto, in the various parts of the Hybrid Manifesto, and you access the recordings via the text that is available on this Patreon. Some of those recordings may have been done before the summer of 2025, some of them may have been done at other times during 2025, and who knows, some of them may be done in 2026 or later. We'll see how things develop. For a variety of reasons, which I might go into in another film, I had, shall we say, a certain amount of time on my hands. From September 2020 to March 2021, I was recovering from an illness, which meant I had time to slowly start to learn about hybrid teaching based on ideas and points of departures which were very different than what were being promoted at my university during the COVID-19 pandemic. In fact, I sort of ignored almost everything that the university was telling us to do and took my own path. Those 8 months, September 2020 to March 2021, approximately 8 months, was where I did the majority of my learning. My learning and practice have continued afterwards, of course. We want to become better at our craft and our skills. But the fundamentals, a lot of the fundamentals that you will hear about here, maybe not all of them, but a lot of the fundamentals are things that I learned during that 8-month period of time. That would be one way of looking. Another way of looking at it is that during 3, 4, 5 years, I learned a number of things and carried out this practice. Instead of you having to do all that work, everything is condensed down in hopefully a palatable way in this hybrid manifesto. I will have links to external films from time to time in the texts because somebody's done such a good job explaining something or demonstrating something. Why should I do that again? When I returned to work after my illness, interest in what I had learned and the skills that I had and applying the skills was very low. This might be changing now. So in making this hybrid manifesto for you, one of the points of departure I had was myself. What would I have liked to have known before the start of the pandemic? What kind of practice and understanding and skills would I have liked to have had before the pandemic, so that when the pandemic rolled around, I was ready? And after the pandemic was over, and if I was going to continue with teaching in some sort of hybrid learning situation, sometimes some people call this blended learning. Some of what I will consider and some of what I will be talking about and demonstrating will mean that you might have to unlearn what you were doing during the pandemic and afterwards. And in this way, you may discover that your university and other universities made some mistakes and false starts during the pandemic. And now, as I said before, we're in this post-pandemic period and we have other challenges for higher education, but the new old habits are difficult to shake off for a number of people. I see that among my colleagues, among others. But presumably in institutes of higher education, there should be an interest in unlearning mistakes and false starts, and instead learn something new that might be better, or at least a complement to existing habits and practices. And from these new thoughts and new practices, it's important to make decisions and spend resources to put this knowledge into practice. Some more context. In addition to the challenges that we faced teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic, in addition to the challenges of teaching during the COVID-19 pandemic, and some of our experiences and methods should be continued to be used in some kind of hybrid teaching. Now, 2024, 2025, possibly already further into the past but not noticed as much, we have increasing number of students with poor reading stamina. There are a number of in-house academic articles and journals that speak about this, and then there are those that are outside academic journals and academic literature, where journalists interview instructors in universities in various locations around the world and maybe interview students. And we can see that there is a poor reading stamina. Students claim that they cannot read long books, maybe even they can't read medium-length books. Some students complain that books are too hard, and some people too quickly then dump those books and find a simpler book with lots of colors and diagrams, sort of making it look like social media. I mean, isn't the way to learn things to grapple with difficult texts and difficult concepts? I thought that was higher education. And, well, apparently it isn't. If you have colleagues who entirely too quickly replace what students call too difficult literature. The literature isn't difficult, it's the students' reading stamina which is poor, and other matters which I think we can get into later on here. But linked to and similar to poor reading stamina is what I would like to call poor video stamina. And it turns out, in the decline in video watching stamina, it's not just the students that have been afflicted. Excessive use of social media and so-called smartphones, and not just smartphones, tablets, is a malaise, and more malleable brains have been affected and conditioned. And it's not just the brains of the students that have been affected. There are large swaths of society which have become affected by this, shall we say, our attention is focused on things that distract us. And this is starting to have impacts on how our brains actually function, not just the students. Additionally, we now have so-called AI, that is to say LLMs, large language models, which further negatively impact on the learning of some critical faculties on the part of some students. Some people in universities, I heard about this during 2025, behave as if students' use of LLMs is actually not happening. It's like you're an ostrich and have put your head in the sand. And they continue to have take-home exams, for example. If it is some in the ivory, it is as if some in the ivory tower have continued their teaching practice as if none of these things, a pandemic, poor reading stamina on the part of the students, use of LLMs, have happened or are playing out right now. My Hybrid Manifesto deals very little with so-called AI, but sometimes touches on reading and video watching stamina.